Hi, everybody. Frank Gladstone here for ASIFA Hollywood. I'm not going to stay on this recording. I'm just going to introduce the master of ceremonies and the author of this book, Your Career in Animation. His name is David Levy, and he's been around for a long time. He was raised by wolves in northern Indiana. Oh no, that's a different guy. He's done a lot of work in our business. He's an award-winning filmmaker. He's done work for Disney Plus. He does a lot of producing and developing of short films for them. And he also has done work for Lucasfilm. He lives in Los Angeles with his wife, his daughter, several chickens, and I think a rooster as well. So David, take it away. I'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Leslie and ASIFA Hollywood, and also Brooke for helping put this together, from the get-go. So I'm so grateful for everybody's help in making this happen. And I got three of my favorite people with me that are all in the book, in the second edition of the book, I should point out. And I'm excited to introduce them. And then after that, I'll say a couple of words about the book, but then we're going to jump right into a really fun, casual conversation about our careers, the industry today, advice we may have to pass along in the spirit of the book. So in no particular order, I'm gonna start with Brooke. She's head of animation talent development at Bento Box Entertainment, and she's an instructor at Cal Arts for roughly 10 years or more. VP of ASIFA Hollywood. Previously, she was the director of community and culture at the Animation Guild. And she also headed animation talent development at Disney TV Animation and Cartoon Network. So thanks so much for joining us, Brooke.
Thanks for having me.
Yay. Certainly, she's one of the guiding lights in animation. And I can't even imagine how many people, are in her debt right now. So there's a lot of payback that you should have coming your way. And next we've got Eric Calderon, who's currently a producer at Falcon's Creative Group. He's got 26 years experience. Next year will be 27 in writing, development, co-productions for animation, specifically US, Canada, Southeast Asia, and Japan. He was previously SVP of development for Octopi. You can also find him at one of my favorite YouTube channels, Surviving Animation. You absolutely have to check out his videos. They're a treat. They're so informative, and we should be lucky that he's making the time to do those for us. I also knew him back when he was a director of development at MTV Animation. So thank you so much, Eric, for joining us.
You're welcome, David. Thanks for having me.
Yay. And last but not least, Jen Oxley. If I called Brooke a guiding light in animation and talent development, I feel that way about Jen for the preschool space. She's an author, illustrator, television writer, director, songwriter, Emmy-winning co-creator of a show you might know and love, like I do, PBS's children's program Peg+Cat. She followed that by leading a reboot of Clifford the Red Dog for Scholastic. And she was previously the creative director of some amazing shows, Wonder Pets, Go Baby, Third and Bird. And she's was a frequent director of shorts for Sesame Street. And also, was an employee back at Sesame Workshop back in the day, and the founder of the studio Snowflake Films NYC. So thank you, Jen, for joining.
Thanks for having me, Dave. This is awesome.
Yeah, no worries. And yeah, there's no way to do justice to any of the experience and accomplishments of this panel. Like I'd be talking for an hour to try. So that's just a little soundbite. Nice. I really suggest everybody look up these fine folks on your, if this is an introduction to them. Or just dig in deeper and check them out on LinkedIn and where you can find them. Real quick, I want to say just a few words about like why this book or why a second edition. The original was written in 2004, or that's when I started to write it. It got published in 2006. So you're talking about a world, pre-social media, really pre-YouTube, right? Pre-Facebook, no Instagram, no like Twitter, not a thing, right? And certainly there weren't this diversity inclusion mandates we have now, we don't know Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, so many social changes along with that. Of course, the media landscape being so different too, with streaming and just a whole different equation, for what our careers are going to be dealing with now. So the book dated, fairly rapidly. I think it just escalated. So, and but being like a new father of a 5-year-old, I wasn't looking to like give myself another thing to do, but the publisher reached out and said, oh, we think this book is still viable, but it really needs a refresh. So that was the impetus to do it. Because when someone asks you for it, you're more likely to jump in and go, yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out a way to do it. But what it did for me is it gave me a chance to expand the reach of the first book. If the first book was more, in my experience at the time was mostly a New York centric point of view. I've since worked 9 years in LA. The world has changed, as I just mentioned, and already. And it gave me a chance to then interview another 50 people that I missed the first time or weren't around the first time. That gave me a chance to kind of recreate more what the industry is today and should be tomorrow, right? So that was a huge opportunity. And if there's any agenda to the book, it was to show this is a whole new time, jump in, join us. There's opportunities available to people now that weren't available to people on this panel, 15 years ago or 20 years ago. So we want to make sure, we spotlight that in our conversation. But we're going to have a very loose, casual conversation. This isn't going to be something where we can't interrupt each other. And I want you, if you all have follow-up questions for each other, please do that, jump in and just go for it. But I'm going to start off with a little question for the group, and you can jump in, whoever wants to go first, but I'd love you all to answer it. Do you have a guiding light or philosophy by which you've planned your career? And how does that help you make choices when you had a fork in the road, for instance? So does anyone want to take that?
I will jump in.
No,
Oh,
Brooke.
Brooke.
To me, thank you. Or let's all do it at once because Zoom is so great at that. For me, it's I've always seen animation as this kind of glob of clay on a wheel in front of me. And it's okay, how can I dent that clay? What can I do? Okay, I can go to CalArts and I can learn animation, and then I can graduate and try to work in this part of animation. Oh, that didn't work. I'll work in this part of animation, so, oh, I can go teach animation to inner city kids at the Watts Towers. I didn't know I'd get to do that. And that was awesome. So to me, it's just that lump is always there in front of me. And I'm just trying to do anything I can to it. Oh, I can help these people get jobs in animation. That's awesome. So that to me is just how I just have always been able to center my life around it in some way or another, not always the way that I wanted it to be. And then in some ways that I never even thought it could be, and it ended up being awesome.
Wow. But so do you feel like you've just had an open mind? Was that the way to make that work, that you could attack it from all different ways or be open to different paths that you didn't think about?
Yeah. I mean, I was raised by hippies in LA. So maybe I was just kind of just part of the, the feeling in the house and, just how I was raised. But it's not anything I set out to do. It's something that I can kind of reflect on and think oh, that's kind of how I've approached it, and don't really think about it at all until someone like you asks me that.
Wow, what a cool answer.
Yeah,
Awesome. Who else wants to chime in?
I can chime in. I would say really early on, I realized that I just love cute things that animate. And I realized that kids TV, preschool TV and animation was kind of my sweet spot. So if there's a guiding force, I would say that I always looked for the cute. I looked for, the project that, was going to make me the happiest. And I tried to approach, any job really as if it's my own short personal film. So I guess
That's
that-
Oh, it's
awesome.
beautiful. Yeah.
Love that, Jen. Eric?
Well, I'm thinking about it, and I guess there are two things that I've kind of kept pretty consistent. One is, I really love cartoons. I love them in the adult space and the kids space and the indie space. And I feel I always wanted to maintain a sense of just being thankful and fortunate that I'm actually in the industry and making cartoons. I mean, I think that I'm so thankful that I'm still working, so the survival part of me is just really just happy to be in the mix somewhere, somehow. And that's always kind of just kept me as a happy person,
Yeah.
But I think I'm always driving towards the lonely frontier. I think that's just something about what I do. So, I was one of the early guys going into Japan, and, I was one of the early guys doing adult animation. And then, when everyone was kind of doing this, I always wanted to go the other way. So it's, sometimes it can be a blazing path. Sometimes it can be pretty lonely, but I think that's what kind of drives me forward, is I just kind of I want to kind of hit left when everyone's hitting right. And yeah, so I mean, and even now, I'll kind of announce to you guys that I'm moving more into the location-based animation business, because Falcon actually builds theme park rides and theme park animation. So I'm now getting in this business of helping them make traditional cartoons, but it's moving me to Orlando.
Oh my gosh.
I
Wow.
know. So
Breaking news.
I know I'm
Wow.
gonna move to Orlando.
We got the
in a little
scoop
bit.
first.
You're
I know you
coming
got
back
the
to the
scoop.
East Coast.
I know I'm going to the East Coast, right, Jen? Here we go.
That's awesome,
Yes.
Eric. Congratulations. That's
Yeah,
so cool. Yeah,
congrats.
experience, kind of like
We were neighbors.
attraction.
What?
I just found out we were neighbors. I thought we were gonna hang out.
I'll be here for a
Yeah.
little while, so we'll
Okay.
plan the lunch date. Yeah. Now that we can.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. We're definitely I'm sure that's gonna come up more in our conversation, but congrats, Eric. Really cool. It's cool to hear that. And yeah, it sounds like, again, that you're doing your own thing. You know, that's, you have like a unique path, and there's another example of it. I feel you know, I'm sympathetic to that, because I feel like early in my career, when I would see, okay, everyone's working on this show, and then the next show opens up or starts, and everyone seems to go to that show. Like that happened a lot in New York. And as soon as I realized, wait, but I want to do some specific things, and I started going off on like my own path, and it suddenly felt like me, and oh yeah, this is right, versus like joining this migration, because it didn't. I didn't even think my skills were the best for that, you know. So it wasn't so much like attitude I had. It was just more like an awareness of, I think my strengths are better applied in a different arena. So I think, you know, I guess self-awareness has been a guide for me. And for when I started, it was fear, you know, fear of failure or losing my job. So I have to work extra hard because I'm not as good as other people, and I need to put in more time than them. Yeah, that's a really good point. And then that got replaced, because fear to me wasn't like a thing I wanted to have carried with me, you know, into this year. But like now I replaced that with hunger, where it's like I'm hungry for new experiences, or I haven't done that before. That's exciting, versus like I'm terrified, you know. So it's just, I've kind of framed it in a more positive light, I hope. I hope.
That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. But Jen, you said something in your answer that I'm going to follow up on now, because and it's basically what I'm talking about. So in New York animation, everyone kind of stayed on a job, and maybe this happens in LA too. Brooke would be the best one to tell us. But in terms of like, for as long as this show is going to be picked up, that's my job, and I'll grow with the show. And when they turn the lights off, I look around, what else is happening? Like that was never what I saw you doing. Like I always saw you kind of seeing the next opportunity while you were already employed, you know, leaving a project, going to a great role on a new one. And I'm not saying that you were just like 6 months here and there. These were always long stints, but you had a different approach. Like, is there anything you can tell us about that?
Yeah, that's like a great question, Dave. You know, my first really big gig was at Sesame Workshop. I was hired as an animator to animate the Muppets, and I was a big Sesame Street Muppet geek. So when I got the job, I told my mother, and it was my first week there. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I was like, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. I told my mom, I'm like, I've hit it. I've hit it big. And she was like, well, Jennifer, I don't know. You know, maybe you'll be there for a while, but I don't know if the first job you ever get is going to be the only job. And you know, she was right. But you know, what happened was I started working there at Sesame, and then I started sort of looking around and sort of seeing like what else was happening. And I always had this itch for like growing and being a part of the conversation, being a part of the creation. And when I was at Sesame, I wasn't doing stuff for the show. I was animating for CD-ROMs and stuff like that, interactive technologies. And I was really eager to get into the TV world. So then that's when the Blue's Clues opportunity came my way. And you're right, everything was going great for me at Sesame when I left. But you know, I just was really itching to see what that was all about. So I jumped onto the Blue's Clues team, which was amazing. I remember when I got the job, they asked me if I knew this program called After Effects, and I'd never heard of it. And I was like, oh yeah, I know that one. It's like, and I look back on that, I'm like, I can't believe I said that. I lied at the interview and just sort of figured it out. But it's like I was always I was so eager to sort of get into that, go towards that next step, even if it meant, failing. But
if I can piggyback on that,
Yeah,
I think
do it, Eric.
it's a great way to survive in general. Is the biggest jobs I've had, I always left when it was really, really good.
Mhm.
And, people kind of thought I was crazy for that. But when I was head of MTV Animation, where you and I first met, David, head of development, I was really kind of going up the ladder. And I remember my boss kind of offering me a vice president position. And I was really young. I was like 28, right? And I kind of looked at him. I said, I quit. And he said, why? And I remember saying, because I think I got to get in trouble. I got to go out there and, hit the street a little bit because, I went straight out of college, a couple of jobs, and then been sitting behind a desk for 6 years. I don't know what the pavement smells like, and I felt that oh, I was kind of repeating the pitch advice, repeating MTV's kind of core message. And, I could feel it like, okay, we're peaking, but we're starting to, and I kind of jumped right when it was going really well. And same thing when I was working in Japan for 6 years, Afro Samurai, which is a show I developed and produced, won the Emmy, right? And the year later, they're like, Eric, what's next? And I was like, I quit. And they're like, why? And I said, because it's great right now. It's really great. But I feel like, what more can I do? For the world of anime, how I can make more shows, whatever. But I just got up and left. But I think kind of looking forward, even when you're at your job, I think that's a way to survive and keep ahead of it, rather than industry crashed, I'm here, oh my God, I have 2 weeks left, what am I going to do next, or my next job?
With all your colleagues in the same boat.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
And Brooke, that's something I could equally describe you, in the same way, in terms of you were so associated in particular with Cartoon Network when I met you, and you subbed to my class right before I moved to LA. And you had such a role there, and then moved on, when you could have stayed. And how did you make those kind of decisions, and what can you say about that?
I'm less likely to leave a job that is going great than Eric is.
Much smarter than I am, actually.
Really, I had friends who were working at Disney, and they had started talking to me pretty much as soon as I got hired at Cartoon Network. So I was at Cartoon for quite a few years, and then they're like, just kind of teasing the idea, hey, we need someone like you over here. And then I just didn't really take it seriously until my friend Mike Moon was there. He's now at Netflix.
Yep.
As of the time of this recording, everyone jumps around so much, but I think he'll be there for a long time. But he brought me over, and it was really more, I loved Cartoon Network. I love my bosses. I'm still in touch with them. Everything about that was lovely, but it was at that moment when they got serious about offering me something at Disney, I just reached out to my mentors, Linda Saminsky and other people. I was like, I don't know what to do.
Exactly.
I know.
I've reached out to Linda many times.
Yeah.
When I see her at kids, I almost take a knee. It just happens.
It should happen.
Yeah.
She's the one.
I know. It's the same rules with the Queen. I can't look her in the eye. I have to
He's a really, attractive Yoda with a great voice.
Yeah.
and really good hair.
Yeah, really good hair.
Totally.
Yeah.
Great sense of humor.
It was just that weighing out the pros and the cons, and so I took the chance, and then it was great, honestly, until Mike then left. He went over to Sony for a minute before Netflix, and then things kind of changed because he had a vision for what he wanted me to do, and it just things kind of got reorged, which is my least favorite word, working at a corporation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, this doesn't really fit. It was kind of everything that Mike had touched and brought in kind of started wilting as soon as he left the room at Disney, and they just changed their vision, whatever. So I left, did a little stint at the Animation Guild, but I love recruiting and I really missed it. And so Bento Box reached out and they had just been poised for a lot of growth. And we've actually doubled in size since COVID started.
Congratulations.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
so crazy. Like,
Wow.
and we added an Australian partner. Like we have a
Great.
studio in Australia that we didn't have before COVID. And we've always had the Atlanta studio, or not always, but we've had the Atlanta studio for a long time. And
Mm.
I have never been busier in my life than in COVID. So is like, I would just like to say to the audience, whoever is watching this, you know, my jump to Disney, like I did feel regret after Mike left. I felt like, oh, maybe I did the wrong thing. I was so happy at cartoons. So you might have moments in your career and you just have to keep going and trust that it's all going to kind of work out in the wash. So I love being at Bento and I loved things about being at Disney and, you know, definitely loved my time at Cartoon Network. So, you know, just have to kind of keep going. You know, when something is like, oh, this doesn't fit anymore, like you just have to kind of keep working at it. And, you know,
Can I ask you a question, Brooke? I'm so curious,
Yeah.
because I think in listening to a person who's been at big corporate and in production company and basically on the, I mean, I wouldn't call guild philanthropy, but it's more like the supporting structures for animation. But do you feel like working at Bento now versus Disney, do you spend more time on the actual job? Because my perception of corporate is, you spend a lot of time with stuff that's about the company and about, and you're kind of like, I kind of want to do the job.
Yeah, I do. I love my favorite thing at Bento is my bosses hired me because they know that I know how to do my job and they're not a corporation. They're actual people with big, wonderful brains in their heads. And they just let me do my work. I don't spend my time writing reports about what I'm doing or justifying what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. And just being able to do my job is like, it gives me so much room to do it really well. Like,
I think so. Yeah.
You know, and always trying to, I'm not saying like I'm the best. I'm just saying like, I can do it better. And I'm always looking for ways that I can make it better because the landscape is always shifting. So you're always having to adapt, as we've already
I'm not poo-pooing corporate in a way. I just think that the kind of person that works well there and the kind of person that stays in corporate, for better or worse, is kind of like a senator or House of Representatives person, which is you spend all this time talking and navigating and trying to move groups of people's opinions around. And some people love that. Some people can play that game.
Yeah, but you spend all your energy doing that. Yeah.
But that's what
true.
Some people like that. Some people like to just do breakfast, lunch, dinner, corporate meeting, and they cut off at 6 and go, that was my job.
Wow.
I don't think that's any of us here, but I don't disrespect people who do that. It's just it's a certain type of person.
It's a skill set that no one can teach you in school. And, my parents owned a model train store, so they couldn't teach me to work at a corporation.
I love that. And Jen, there's a question there popping up for you too, because when you were show running, whether it was, Little Airplane or Nickelodeon, you had all that infrastructure of, someone else was worried about the light bulbs and the toner and the copier and things like that. And all the other issues that come with employees. Do you and now as a studio operator, who also was making your own show for several seasons, right? For Peg+Cat. Yeah. How did you balance that from having that infrastructure problem and then, being a creative as a showrunner with that responsibility?
It's tricky. I mean, hired a lot of really great people who know more than I do about, the financials. And we did partner with the Fred Rogers Company for Peg+Cat. So they handled a lot of the deal making, but then the day-to-day actual running of the studio, that was just on us. And it was just it was actually great. It was because we got to create this sort of happy place and we got to hire the people we wanted, and decisions were made so quickly because you really didn't have to go through all this decision making, or approvals. It was really just like, oh, we want to do this, then let's do this. And we got to, make a place that we wanted to work at, if that makes sense.
That's
great. I'm trying to think. I mean, there are things that I really don't like about owning a company, like workman's comp, and dealing with paying into things, insurance, production insurance, all that stuff that you have to go through. But you just sort of hire the people to help you out. And really for me, it's like I never wanted to take on too much to the point where I wasn't able to draw and animate and write and do the things that I love to do. So that's the balance, really. It's just making sure that it doesn't get to the point where, you know, I'm in just meetings like what you all were talking about.
Got it. And then
What is that toy behind you?
Go
It's
ahead.
killing me. The
Which one?
8-track.
Oh, this?
Yeah, I had it when I was a kid and I can't remember. What is it?
It's 2XL.
2XL.
It's a little robot, right?
Yeah, it
Oh,
okay.
plays
I remember
8-track tapes.
Yeah, thank you. I remember that 8-track toy, and it was like you were talking, I was
Yeah.
listening, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I was like, I had that. I need
Yeah.
to know its name. All right, thank you. Sorry, thank
I
you.
love it.
Yeah.
So that's
No.
great set dressing right
2XL.
there. And Eric, there's a question it's occurring to me to ask you, which is, you're someone like Jen's talking about all the things that she wants to still do, you know, and still gets to do even despite, you know, running a studio, but you're on the producing development side for a lot of your career, but you're also a writer. You know, you're really a creative person. That's not just the person who's going to give great notes to the creator, but you're sometimes the creator too, right?
Yeah.
And writing a screenplay or what have you. So how do all those things inform what you do and make you, you know, the executive that you are?
Well, you know, it's been, you know, when I created Surviving Animation, I almost created it as a joke because, you know, I was talking to an executive I hadn't talked to a long time, and I was on social media doing CrossFit like for like years of my life, just because I was one of those guys, you know. And the first thing the person asked me is, "Are you still in animation?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still surviving." And like it just dawned on me that it's easy to kind of like fall to the wayside and come back. But, you know, I think what I've kind of aspired to is to really just be an entrepreneur. And sometimes you have to go in the room. And if that room needed a writer or showrunner, then I had to try to take that role. And if another room needed me to be a purely development executive, then I would try to take that role. And, you know, I think over the years, I found out what I'm good at, what I'm average at, and what I'm really terrible at, you know. And, you know, the longer I go, I find that, you know, being a development exec, being a coach, really trying to help people and trying to take ideas from this amorphous thing into a structured, you know, properly formatted thing, that became my bread and butter. And I'm like an okay writer. I'm fine, you know, in that maybe like a collegiate screenplay professor might be, you know, which is, I could have all the rules, but man, I just can't rock, you know. Some people just rock, you know. And then I found out that I'm a really, really below average director, like really not good at all. And then just a terrible, terrible lawyer, you know, because I'll just do stuff because I want to, and I won't
Yeah.
care if people pay me, and I will like give up
Same.
every term, and I'll be like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Will you send me t-shirts? So it's like, you know, I'm just terrible. And I'm also
terrible
a
too.
pretty terrible production manager too. I'm like, we'll probably get it done in time. And, you know, I don't know, a couple of weeks for that. I don't know, take a month, maybe 2 or a couple of days, you know? So, you know, I think when you start to find all those things, you start to carve your path towards what you're better at, and you steer clear of what you're awful at. And to Jen's point, you try to hire around what you just don't want to do, what you can't do, and what you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And so I guess
Love that.
that's how I kind of found my way forward. And luckily I had enough skills to keep working in the business. And, you know, I try to have a self-awareness that like, oh, I'm going to be horrible at that, and I stay away from it. Or, you know, talk to my lawyer or you know, talk to.
Yeah, you know who to send them to.
Yeah.
And then, but the other thing you've done, you know, is you have this great style of communication on your YouTube channel where you're really supportive, and like you're not just giving great information on like what is Netflix looking for right now, or you know, you have all these great insights, but I get that, like I feel like you're holding my hand as you tell me these things, and like, you know, if this applies to you, great. If not, it's great to know about. And you know, like you really have a certain tone that's so warm and wonderful. Like how did you come up with that, or is that just your authentic self when you turn the camera on?
It's funny. You guys ever do those like Myers-Briggs type indicator, you know, where you like do your personality test? Well, every time I do one of those, it always comes back saying I should be a teacher, you know, and I should be with people. So it turns out I like to communicate. I like to find out what another person's about, and I like empathy. Like I highly value emotional intelligence. So I just tend to like to teach people what I know. And to me,
Mm,
it's not mine or anyone else's. It should just be something we all know, because it will all make better
Sure.
shows. We'll all be
Yeah.
better. So if you lift up everybody, we have a better industry.
Yeah.
And so that's just
Absolutely.
why I wanted to keep giving as much free stuff as I can, because I don't know, it just feels good to do it too. You
Yeah.
know?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Mm.
And Brooke, I want to ask you a question relating to everything we're talking about. So you have so many unique skills and talents. You're a filmmaker. You know, broke some ground, you know, with your first film from Cal Arts, you know, that entered the world, you know, first animation in Sundance, you know, the Student Academy Award, you know, just to name a couple of honors. So you're an incredible artist, and you've worked in a lot of artistic roles on the creative side of production too, but you found such an incredible niche, you know, in the talent development side. Like, so how did that evolve, and does that feel like where you want to, is that the sweet spot now, or is there still something else you're itching to do?
It evolved kind of organically. You know, I was working, when I graduated from Cal Arts, there wasn't a lot of work in animation. At that time, there was a lot of work and then no work, and a lot of work and then no work, right, in animation, right? I don't think that's gonna really happen again. There might be like a lot of work and a little work or something, or medium-sized amount. I just think there's, at this point from now on, there's just gonna be a lot of work in animation in some way, shape, or form, right? But so there wasn't a lot of work and in that realm, and there was an article about a visual effects studio in the LA Times that one of my mentors, this guy Mike Mitchell at Cal Arts, had just saved for me. And he said, hey, you know, you did a lot of stop motion, you know how to build models, blah, 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 your dad's train store. Maybe you should go hit these people up. So I did, and started as a PA and got to work on films. We worked on Inception and The Aviator and The Dark Knight, and then like crappy movies. Well, I guess I won't name those.
Yeah, don't.
Ghosts of Mars, John Carpenter,
I saw it.
which I actually love.
It's John Carpenter. You got to
I
see
know,
it.
it was so great.
The one with Ice-T or the Ice Cube?
It was Ice Cube. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
I
Ice
think so.
Cube. Oh wow.
So while I was there, it was a small studio. I'm still really close with the owners, and I just, like, we got along, and, you know, I got to do art stuff, production stuff. And there was one time we were in between jobs, and I was there working on some production thing, and there were just like portfolios stacked up. And, you know, at that time, people brought their big leather bound books, their portfolios in, and they were just collecting dust. And I said to my boss, like, do you want me to go through these and kind of like rank them, or, you know, do something with them? Because these people probably want to get them back, and maybe we want to hire some of these people. So that was my first little baby aha moment. Like, oh, maybe I could recruit. Like, so I started helping them recruit, but I didn't have that title. But I just, and somewhere around there, that book, The Tipping Point, came out. And
Oh yeah, Malcolm Gladwell's great book.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you how many people I'd have, you know, a lunch date with the provost of Cal Arts, and she was like, you're a connector. I'm reading this book about
That's right.
people. Like,
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
is that
You
like
make things sticky.
choreographies?
That's right. Make things
Yeah, sticky.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me.
I didn't know that was a thing that everyone, you know, you just know what you do. I didn't know that everyone didn't connect people. So
Yeah.
that's just, and, you know, I won't bore you with all of the details of that, but that kind of happened organically. And, you know, I like making my own films. I wish that we had a National Film Board of Canada in the United States, because if we
Yeah.
had some kind of model like that, I think that I would have just kept making my own films. But
Right.
no offense to Cal Arts, but, you know, I graduated with crushing student loans at the time. You know, the train store was adorable, but it did not pay for Cal Arts. As
Yeah,
one
that's
can
rough.
imagine. Only so many HO scale train sets you can sell. But,
You could say
and
that was the wrong track. for-
Ah.
Oh, sorry, that's terrible.
So you're a dad. I just realized.
Yeah. I've been like this for a long time. Jen will tell you.
that's adorable. Yeah, that's
I miss it, Dave. I really miss.
Thank you.
I miss your jokes.
I like
I
how
appreciate
Jennifer
it.
went straight from offended to like, oh, I really missed that.
I
She was like, oh god, oh
That's
hey.
the Dave Levy way. You know?
know. So
No, that's a great
to
little
more
story, Brooke.
directly answer that question,
Yeah.
I love doing this. There's a film that is kind of like gnaws at the back of my craw. It's in my craw, gnaws at the back of my brain, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe I'll make that last film. But right now,
I love that.
I don't think that people think of what I do as a creative job, but I think of it as very creative. I feel like
Me
you know,
too.
my bosses have given me space to make it what I think it should be and expand it the way I want to. And I love people. I miss people being in COVID. So,
And Brooke, you know, the reason you're definitely right. I mean, it's casting in a way, right? Because
Mhm.
so isn't, who
Mhm.
could say like great casting director is not creative in how they can envision who's the right fit for a part or suggest, right? So yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And Jen, I want to throw a question back to you, just because we just brought up dads and I guess parents. So you're, you know, you have two lovely children, and but you didn't, you know, way back when you got the preschool bug because of cute content, you know, pulling you in. But now as a mom parent, you know, a mom/parent creator who's, you know, still working in the preschool space, like has that changed your approach in any way, or like how you develop projects, what you think the audience would need or want?
Yeah, you know, I feel like I've always had the ability to sort of like tap into my inner child. But once I had, you know, Fox is my son and Tula's my daughter, once I had them, I felt like it did sort of take it to another dimension, if that makes any sense, because they were becoming, you know, inspiration for what I did. Like Fox, when he was a baby, he used to make these like sounds, just not nonstop. That's all he did, and it was really funny and endearing. So I turned it into a character, and you know, it became, you know, Baby Fox on Peg+Cat, and he made these, like, that's all he did, is he made these like sounds, and so yeah, that's just one example of like little things in their lives that inspire me. And I'm trying to think. I guess another thing, the inspiration is one way to answer it, but another way would be I try to be careful not to put so much stock in what they think, because you know, because I feel like they're just two kids and they're living their lives, and there's so many other kids out there that are living their lives. So when I'm showing them my work, you know, I try not to put too much stock into, well, Fox loved it, or Fox didn't like that, or Fox got that right away, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just one. I try and remember that they're just one kid, and you know, one group of two kids who are living their lives, and there's so many other kids out there. So I guess
That's really smart. Like I just did something with my daughter where at Disney, one of the things I half the projects on my team slate are ones we develop and produce ourselves. The other half come to us. They're like company mandates and anniversaries and time, you know, milestones, tentpoles. One was Donald Duck's birthday, so that, you know, we got a little budget to make a 30-second Donald short for Instagram Reels. Yay! And it was so much fun. But you know, we, you know, wrote the script ourselves as a team, and then we radically redesigned Mickey, Donald, Minnie, Goofy, and Pluto, and to the point where another biz dev team at Disney says, you're not going to get approval for that. But I showed it to my 5-year-old daughter, and I said, who are these? And she like, boom, Donald, Minnie, Goofy, you know. And once I saw that, I'm like, this is going to be fine, you know, because it's still iconically the characters, and it's not going to be missed, and it's actually the right style for Instagram. You know? So yeah, but I hear your point. Like, you know, every kid is growing up in a different world.
David, you know, I'm listening so intently to both of you guys because I have 3 books here, right? The first one is Your Career in Animation.
Yeah.
The second one is The Expected Father.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, which I knew.
The third
That's
one
amazing
is
news.
What to Expect When You Expect.
I read that.
Because we're expecting our first this October. So it's like,
Oh.
literally, here's my
We're so
reading.
happy.
Like,
that is such.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's true. Eric, you're not allowed any more good news on Zoom. You're just blowing our
not
minds.
spoiler, I promise. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I will say though, Dave, it is great to have them though, to show them stuff like that though, because you do have a little audience bubble.
It's one, it's one point. It's an
extra
one extra point of view you don't have, but it may not
totally,
be the be and end all.
Totally, it does help.
That's a really good point. But you know, early on, like something Brooke just said moments ago about like she thinks, you know, we're in this place where it's not going to have that ups and downs anymore, you know, for content like being made, like the amount of jobs, the amount of shows, the amount of platforms, I guess. Because of that, and since, you know, Jen as a creator, you know, Eric as a creative development executive, and Brooke as someone who's on every show, and also worked in development, but previously, like what's going to stand out now, or how does anything stand out and still get sold? You know, what are those magic things that are going to break through with the audience so fractured and the platform so numerous?
Well, I'll start with one thing. I mean, I think what we're seeing right now is the merger of this idea of TV series, event, and film. You know, they're all kind of becoming one big thing, and the expectations of every series are just getting higher and higher and higher. You know, every single premiere has to be Oscar, Emmy award winning, fully stacked talent, most expensive budget, highest production value, biggest marketing splash, because everyone wants it to be the thing that's going to get 10 million new subscribers to their platform. So that, I think that's pretty challenging, you know, for everyone, because now you have to be the biggest, loudest, most exciting thing for any market, whether it's like preschool, bridge, kids, you know, adult, sci-fi, horror, or like breakthrough formats like Midnight Gospel or City of Ghosts, which is like my favorite show right now. So it's tough. I think it's really, really tough to compete at that level. At the other side, I do think that some of those platforms are just going to help success through the infrastructure that they're built in. I mean, you think about like a Noggin, right? So Noggin exists on devices, and it's already got kind of like a predetermined marketplace, which is going to get a massive penetration just because it's sitting right in front of kids. So, you know, I think you got to always remember that sometimes the infrastructure itself will just drive something to be moderately successful. But then the other side is, you know, this packaging insanity right now is tough for anyone trying to pitch.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, it's hard to imagine like a SpongeBob, you know, all-in hit like coming out of such a fractured landscape. But you know, moderately successful could be the goal now. But yeah, any other thoughts?
I was gonna say, you know, it's different. You know, we're all older than some people and younger than others, right? So like, but we all remember when it was just like the show. We all watched the show, and then we talked about the show the next day at school or the next day at work, and that's fractured. But I do think that I really love how it is now, because there's a chance for so many more voices, so many more types of stories to be told. And even if they don't all hit like the major numbers, there's places for those things to exist that those places didn't exist before. So I'm not saying one is better or worse, but I'm enjoying now because that wasn't like that before. I mean, I always think like if I graduated now and, you know, like if I was graduating school right now and had a film that was doing well in festivals and blah, 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 like I would just be like a kid in a candy store with all of the different opportunities that exist now. Like, oh, I'll go, you know, make some gifts for a while for a studio, and then I'll, you know, do this podcast and blah, blah, blah. It's like, there's just, you know, not that I can't do that now, but I'm more into like helping other people do that.
I also want to say, you know, I think what you mean by being successful is really contextual, because, you know, if you have, I mean, what I like to say is I have like an 8,000 and change audience on my YouTube channel, right? It's successful because the money I put in is smaller than the money I get out. You know, I mean, I get like a couple $100 of, you know, ad revenue, which is nothing, but I get thousands of dollars in constant consultations. You know, so I mean, you know, probably 30, 40, 50 grand in total, you know, since, you know, even the last year.
You mean people reaching out because they see
that's
the
correct.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's awesome.
That's
really
correct.
cool.
So, you know, I've had, you know, in the last 6 months, something like 77 consultations.
Wow.
And these are people from like, you know, I have a guy from Omaha, I have like a Google engineer, you know, I've got some, you know, my job from Falcon came from consultations of people finding my YouTube channel. So, you know, if you think about someone who has YouTube as a platform that do animation, and they've got 2 million subs and they're making, you know, 15, 20 grand a month, and they're animating with 3 people, that's success.
Oh yeah.
You know, so you don't need to have ratings and Nielsen's and marketing budget to be, you know, successful in any kind of show. And what's great is that we can all make things that we are destined to make, the things that we love to make the most. And I always go back to that old, like, I heard this somewhere in the 90s, but it's like, all that matters is that the production cost of what you make is smaller than the revenue coming in. That's success. It doesn't matter if one person, so if one person buys your movie for $1 million because they're like some rich guy from the south of France, and you make that movie for $500,000, you just made $500,000 and one guy watched it. Like that's,
Sure.
that's success.
It may not be repeatable.
That may not be repeatable. I'm gonna have to say it's not a business plan.
Yeah. No, but it's a form of
We
success.
all define, we just, as we go older and go through life, we define success for ourselves.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
not- Like what you think of success as a kid isn't necessarily what you think of success, at different
Yeah,
age brackets and
Yeah.
times.
absolutely. I know, like from my first week in animation when I started at Michael Sporn in New York, that I've never felt more successful, than that moment of like, I got a job and I'm working in animation. I guess it sounds a little bit like Janet.
Like Jennifer the Muppet.
Yeah, because like you're sitting in a chair getting to do what you wanted to do for a living every day, right? And
Yeah.
someone's paying you for that as you're being paid to learn and grow and
Yeah.
leave your mark one day. Like unbelievable. So like that's we shouldn't forget even those successes, whatever point in your career, whatever. It's that's gratitude, right? Or I think it's really important to keep.
Yeah, and embrace the failures too, because your failures, they don't feel good, but that's where you grow as a person. You don't grow from constant success. You grow because you took a chance and maybe you failed, and it's okay
Totally.
because try
Mhm.
another thing.
Oh yeah, and Jen, I want to make sure we get your input on that question too. In regards to as a creator pitching, like, do you find it a different, like now that there's so many places to pitch and so many shows can get greenlit, not just like 3 that made up a preschool block that was from 8 to 10, or you know what I mean? Like it's like it's a different equation now. Like, is that better or different? Like, what is that like for you?
But I think I agree with Brooke. I think it's kind of amazing. It's amazing that there's all these different avenues and these different, places that you can place your show. Because before, way back when, it was really just a couple players. But now it's totally different landscape, and it's exciting. And I love that there's YouTube, and there's all these different alternatives to the broadcasters that we once knew of. So I would say, I guess I'm just repeating what they
But
said.
I mean, Jennifer, I'm
Yeah.
so curious too, because I think David talks about this in his book, but like for someone at your caliber, the tables must have turned, which is you're no longer pitching. Now the networks are constantly pitching you because they want Jennifer's next show.
They
I mean, I
should.
think at some point you just kind of turn. I mean, it's that's the truth. That's the truth.
It is cool to have people to be given a development deal, like a blind deal, just to sort of like come up with ideas.
Yeah.
So that's definitely exciting, and being invited to pitch for RFPs as opposed to just sort of cold approaching a broadcaster. I've done both.
And I think part of what I really love about Dave's book, if I'm to brag about your book a little bit, is you do kind of break down that reality, which is especially in the development world, if you've never done anything before, you've just got an idea, the chances of you actually getting a show is like basically zero. And I tell people that all the time to their incredible dismay. But if you've been in the industry and you've shown through hard work and through being a normal human, being a good person and being reliable and talented, it just starts to turn. And basically any one of us on this call, if we were going to be a development exec in the preschool space, we would be calling Jennifer and saying, I just got this job. But that's the truth, because, we want to work with someone who is so proven that we can say, hey, this is going to make me look better at my job. And this is going to guarantee a show because proven talent, and that's kind of how you get up to that level.
And that's the great part. And like someone like Jen should absolutely have a seat at that table, right? And then there's also, but the amount of opportunities is also letting voices that didn't get a chance yet to take a swing at the bat along with her, so it's like the ultimate balance. Like, and it is an exciting time to work in the field.
But I gotta say, it's not the Wild West. I think the 90s were the Wild West in my perspective. Right now it's the wild country club, because it's getting bigger and bigger, but the membership cost is getting higher. So, you know, you can't just let anyone in. Like,
Pedigree.
you don't just get a
Yeah.
show. You
Yeah,
still have to
you
like,
call it a pedigree on your channel.
oh
which I think is
yeah,
a
well
great
that was
word for
my
that.
my Netflix video was
Yeah.
Pedigree is the pitch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And what's interesting, just in terms of that, it's the gigantic thing. If you just look at Netflix, like they have their own development for in each category, right? Whether it's preschool, kids, you know, adult or sitcom, whatever we're calling it. And then they have also these people like Chris Nee that have deals for, like, you know, okay, 5 Chris Nee shows this year, please. And then Nancy Cantor, which I assume her deal's happening, something similar to that. And so they have all that reach. Like, it's not even just one like internal development team that's doing 10 shows. There's like a lot of branches to it.
Mhm.
It's really interesting.
Mhm.
Cool. I think we're probably going to wrap up pretty soon, but I want to make sure I get to ask a wrap up style question. I would love to talk all day, but I know everyone's got lives and things to do. And it's late for Jen in New York right now.
Oh,
It's
I
getting
know,
late.
Jen. Thank you.
Oh yeah, actually, this is actually great timing for me, I have to say, having kids.
All right, kids are
Yeah,
asleep.
yeah, it's so much. 9 o'clock is ideal.
Woohoo. See, I did that for you.
Yeah.
All right. So if you could go back and give yourself advice, you know, at the beginning of your career based on your experiences now, since then, you know, what would that be? Like, what would you say to yourself? What would that pep talk be like? Because I think that's important for our most impressionable viewers. Anyone in any order you want to go.
It would be that it's a long game. You don't have to get your dream job right out of school. That's great if you do. You will have many dream jobs along the way, and you'll have a few clunkers along the way. And it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. Be nice to people along the way. Do your work hard. Don't burn bridges with people. You know, just be a good person, work hard, and know that things will work out. You know, if you keep working hard, things will work out. And also be honest with yourself about your skills. As a recruiter, I see a lot of portfolios from people who just like, do you think you can draw the style of the show? Like, you know, sometimes a portfolio comes in and it's just like, you need to work on those drawing skills or whatever. So just like keep making work. It's not just keep trying, but like keep making work that's going to get you those next jobs.
For me, I would
That's
just
great.
say, trust your gut, because I feel like it took me a really long time to trust myself. And, you know, I feel like a lot of the mistakes that I made along the way where I would look back and say, well, I had this gut feeling and I wish I had just trusted that. And I feel like it's sort of hard. I don't know if I'm being too heady, but like just sort of like just trusting in yourself, really, and knowing.
I've got a funny one. I
Yeah.
wish I would have told myself younger to be better with money. You know, because I think when you're in an industry that has like a lot of up and down, you know, it's easy to, I got this sweet job, I'm going to spend all this money and, you know, get this car, dress really nice, whatever. But then, you know, this is not a stable industry. And, you know, you could go 3 years working, 5 years working, but when you're that 6 to 12 months out of work, it hurts really, really bad. And I think, you know, just setting yourself up for knowing that there's going to be feast and famine and always squirreling away when you're earning well. You know? I just think like if I told myself that when I was younger, I would have had a much easier 2010, 2011 when things really hit the floor. But
I had a great mentor at CalArts, Gary Schwartz. You know him, right?
yeah.
Still one of my best friends, was a mensch of honor at my wedding. And and he just instilled in me, save until it hurts, because you're going to need that. And he said the most important thing to have in your career, if you can, is autonomy so you can walk away from a job that isn't great if you're not happy at a place. You need to have that cushion. So it kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying, I think, Eric.
Yeah.
Save until it hurts. Pay yourself first.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
I love all these answers. And I think for me, I would just add to that, assume the best intentions from everybody else, and value relationships and honor them and protect your relationships, nurture them, win trust, earn trust. as that's as important as everything else you're paid to do as part of that job. And
You know,
my-
I agree, and I wanted to also say that like every time I've had a really good relationship, it moved me a step forward. But every time I had a bad one, it threw me back 10.
oh wow,
It's
yeah.
really like it's the opposite. You know, it's like
It's true.
it's really bad. Like when I've had arguments or I had something go bad, it just hurts for years.
Mm.
Like it can really
Right.
damage, and it takes you have to really crawl back. And
I
build
felt
that-
like someone
Yeah.
who's gone through Alcoholics Anonymous, where they have
Yeah.
to do their apologies. I've done apologies to people a year or two later or late, or and after something was long over, just because it's unresolved for me, and I want them to know I have regrets.
That's
and
great.
Wish
That's
I could have
really
done
great.
things a different way. Yeah, and it's never hoping to reset it so I get a job or there's a some angle to it. It's never that, and I don't even it's really about my soul. And
Wonderful,
yeah,
wonderful.
I-
Yeah.
That's
I
really
hope, yeah,
great.
but I don't want to have to. I'm not trying to create more opportunities where I have to apologize for. So it's the whole thing. You have to simultaneously reset yourself and be like, okay, I'm about to step into this trap that I've stepped into 6 times already. How do I not do that again? And it's
Yeah.
just that self-awareness I think is so important.
That's beautiful. Beautiful,
Yeah.
David. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
excellent.
Wow. And Jen, real quick, because you talked about your gut check, like, do you feel like have you gotten to a place now where you do listen to that voice and it makes your decisions for you? Or
I
where is
feel
that
like
now?
I finally am getting there. I definitely, as a director, as an artist, as a business owner, I always try and think, well, what's right? What's the right thing to do? And what in everything really, in the character I'm designing, in the scene I'm directing, in the person that I'm giving notes to, what's the best way
Yeah.
to give notes to this person so that they're on my team, because I want everybody to feel like, they're doing their best work. So anyway, it's just sort of what's right, let's trust your gut kind of thing.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm so grateful that we all got to spend an hour together and talk about our careers, our lives, our successes, our regrets, the whole shebang. So really, thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Frank,
guys.
Leslie, ASIFA Hollywood.
David, thank you for your book.
Yeah,
Really,
thank you.
you're doing a great thing to the world, and
I appreciate it.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, me
Oh, and
too.
I'm a big fan
too.
of all of you, and thank you so much for being in the book and just honoring me with all your wisdom. So thank you, everyone. I hope ASIFA Hollywood enjoyed this, and we'll catch you real soon. Bye.
See you later, everyone.
Bye, everyone.